now?
Sure, I'll go over on the other side where you were over there last week. All right.
Test, test.
Working.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Not too loud?
No. I don't see any.
There's nothing wrong with more bucks.
All right.
Oh, absolutely disgusting. Give me more.
Now that we have the cookies going around, Ron, are you ready to check in?
Yes, good afternoon, evening, everyone. We actually have all of the bargaining team together here intact, and there are no time constraints that I'm aware of at this point.
All right. Great. Kurt?
Same for this side. Everyone's here, no time constraints.
Excellent. All right, so we can get some work done here. Did you have a chance to look at the minutes? And does anybody have any changes, corrections, deletions to the minutes? I don't see any hands going up, so may we accept the minute as written, please? As he comes. Thank you. All right, we left last week with 20 options, some very detailed, some of them are basically to do with language changes, and some are kind of just a one-sentence thing. So, after you've had a week to kind of think about things, do we have any new options or any old or straw designs or anything? Anybody?
Can we start or you can start?
Okay, sure.
We put our heads together on this side, and we have another option that we can share. Pull it up here. This particular option would not move the base to 54.5, but it'd get close. This option would move the base to 53,000.
You all right? Start with this or you want me to start with 54? Okay.
All right, just making sure. So this would include the extra 9 minutes per day, with the caveat that, as we talked earlier, that we have some language prepared that would ensure that it's at the teacher's discretion with that's their time, their planning time, their personal time that can be that cannot be infringed upon. We had to restructure the tiers because every time you add another tier, it costs more money. And so we shrunk to 4 tiers, where the first tier would be year 0, and that would be a base of 53,000. Years 1 to 9 would be 5%. 10 to 19, 6, and 20 plus 7. This is in addition to the almost 2% increase in base salary that we're not calling a raise, but it does increase the base salary by working 9 minutes more. So you could effectively add those percentages together. But for year 0, the increase is about 2.92%. I hope that made sense in the way that I explained it. And then this language, with the pay, we would also want to include parental leave, bereavement leave, the fixes to terminal pay, performance pay, mandatory meetings, language, and the new special instructional base, whatever that applicable base would be. I think it'd be 61. I'd have to double check.
And I'm sorry, can you go through that last time? Parental pay, bereavement leave.
Terminal pay, performance pay, and the mandatory meeting language capped at 45 minutes.
What did you think of special instructional?
I'd have to calculate exactly what that base would move to, but I think in one of the management options, it moved to 62.5 if the base was 54.5. So this should move it to 61 instead of 62.5.
I'm sorry.
So under this option, everything is years X. We need to have a little bit more discussion around how that impacts our special instructional friends, and a commitment to, addressing that maybe next year. Not this year, but yes, in February when we return. I think that includes everything.
You want me to include that basic special instructional for next year?
Yeah, that would be
Is that good?
part of the deal here. We really want to address that.
Okay. Any questions, Ron?
I think we have a couple questions. One of them,
Okay.
Kerr, we talked about, when you say performance pay, are you including career ladder and the?
Career ladder historically hasn't come out of the bargaining pot. It's just been the cost of doing business. So it's in the contract as a mechanism there. So I did not account for it here.
You captured like down to.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Claire, we don't hear that operate.
Just a clarifying question, you said 9 minutes a day at the teacher's discretion. Is this something that you guys are deviating from the calendar committee? So it is 9 a day, period?
So I think for us, the angst over the 9 minutes, even though it doesn't seem like it's a lot, is there are 5 buckets of teacher time in a 24-hour day. 3 of which are controlled by the contract, right? There is the time that teachers spend with their families not thinking about work. And there's a time that the bargaining unit provides labor outside of contract time, which I wish people would do less of, that essentially carries any school district in the nation, the free labor of their employees, the salary ones. And so that leaves lunch, which would be 30 minutes, and it leaves the planning time that's addressed in the contract. So time in their 7.5-hour day that is not defined by lunch or planning is pretty much at the discretion of the administrator to tell the teacher what to do, whether they're in front of students or they're working at parent pickup or things like that. So the angst of the 9 minutes is we need to make sure that 9 minutes, I mean, we're not gonna make lunch 39, even though that'd be great, right? But that 9 minutes needs to not live in the gray area where an administrator can look at somebody and go, hey, you got an extra 9 minutes, I need you on the parent pickup ramp, or I need you early morning outside your door, because I've given you your 300 that's required by the contract, and I'm giving you your 30. So I think that's where a lot of the angst comes from, and I don't necessarily think it's 9 a day. I mean, ideally in my world, all of your teachers would tell you how they want to spend that 45 minutes independently. That may be a management nightmare, but I really think the angst from the people that we've spoken to is the idea that exists in the gray area. Where, because again, if I'm teaching at a school and my boss says, listen, I know your day is longer by 9 minutes, I need you on parent pickup, even though we kind of agree it's the teacher's time, where's my grievance? Because I can't grieve the 300 minutes because I'm getting that, and I can't grieve I'm getting less than 30 minutes for lunch. So like, where's the grievance that we can use with the administrators who may decide that 9 minutes lives in the gray area, and I'm gonna make it other duties as assigned. And so that's, and I know Kerr, I'm gonna give the mic to Kerr, and he's gonna have some language. But I think that's the angst over that 9 minutes, the real angst over that 9 minutes, is kind of this gray area creep that we can't hold people accountable. Did you put gray area creep? That would be good.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. All right, here's Kerr.
So,
I'm stealing some language from Charlotte County,
and
kind of adding it to where it might fit the contract, but basically, in addition to the planning time, instructional staff shall have self-directed professional learning time of 9 minutes per day, or a total of 45 per week.
Okay, does that answer your question, Joe? Okay. Ron, did you have a question?
I don't, I'm just looking at the team to see if anybody else has any additional questions or anything.
Okay, I don't see any hands going up, so.
We talked earlier about, the direction tonight. I think we both kind of prepared some options coming in tonight. So I want to share with you what we put together as an option. And I think it's more or less kind of, again, an adjustment. I know it's option 22, but if you go up to option, I think is it 18 or 19, we can kind of base it off of that because it's pretty similar to option 18. Yep.
Okay,
So again, I think we're all kind of in agreement, we don't have an agreement, but we're in agreement that the parental bereavement and the adjustment to FRS is part of both options. There is then a limit, obviously, to the meeting minutes, so 45 minutes to the additional, or for the 2 meetings per week would be included in that. Not a month, yeah, not per week. And then we appreciate certainly appreciate the movement on the 9 minutes and understand, how that affects the staff, and appreciate the movement towards the starting salary, which are interests, obviously, that we've talked about from the beginning of bargaining. Mike, keeps going. Give me 1 sec.
Are you gonna share your thought there?
No, I'm not gonna share. I'm not in case I'm not sharing anything.
Shocker.
So,
So the option that we have includes, kind of what we said as far as our interest in the 9 minutes and the 2% that goes along with that, the starting salary at $54,500 for instructional staff, $62,500 for special instructional, and then we actually really worked on something that we think is a better option in relation to compression. So we actually started to kind of dive into the whole idea of compression to find out really within the district, where does the most compression lie with our staff? And so when we explore the data, and that's part of probably the one, Amy, if you wanna, I don't know if I shared that with you, to take a look at that. So I just wanna give you some rationale behind what we put together. To say this actually makes sense to us, because we are also interested in addressing some compression issues. And let me say, I know that we've talked about this, and there is a commitment to really taking a look at the next time around, addressing the compression issue really kind of the right way by really crediting years X what it really is. And there is a commitment to do that. And so this is probably more of a Band-Aid to get to that point, to make it a little bit closer to what we think is an issue within the district. So, the issues that we found, really, the most compression within the district, the most compression is from years 6 to 14. So that's where there's a difference in when you take like 0 to 5, 6 to 14, 15 to 20, and 21 plus. that's where we see currently the issues with compression. So again, the differences in the increases from those different years bands is not the same. And so really what we tried to explore was how do we get, kind of some consistency in the band. So 0 to 5, because of the increase in starting salary isn't really calculated, and because it only reflects that 4%. Okay, so right now, currently, from 3 to 5, it's a 6% differential. 6 to 14 is 5.7, so it's actually a lower percentage differential. And then from 15 to 20, it bumps up to 8.7%. So you could see from years 5 to 15, in the differences, okay, the increases aren't incrementally the same. And so that was our attempt to really take a look at how do we balance out the increases so that it creates less compression, and it makes sense. I don't know if you have any questions regarding that, and I may not be, the math people sitting to my right are probably a lot more equipped to answer these questions. Go ahead,
All
Kevin.
right, Kevin?
So, so I guess my question is, because from an average perspective,
Right.
this looks okay. It looks okay. It's not great, it's not wonderful, it's not awful, it's okay. And in the world today, okay is sometimes,
Right.
So I guess, and this is the question that's gonna drive all 6,000 people, right?
Yep.
Is you say the average hourly rate new for 21 plus is 48.85,
Right.
right? I'm just gonna share my salary as public knowledge after 28 years. I make a little more than that per hour.
Yes.
So what does that mean for me?
Yeah, so the next slide, again.
Okay, there's another slide.
Yeah, there's
right.
one more, and this is just kind of a rationale behind what we saw by looking at the data, what we thought was appropriate, and then the next slide actually really addresses that. So if we're looking at years X, and you have that up there, whoops. So we're looking at, this is just a compression adjustment, so it doesn't take into account the 2% on top of that is there. So 0 to 2 would be 0%, 3 to 5 years would be 3%, 6 to 14, again, that's that grade, that band that we see the most compression. So a 5% adjustment, 15 to 20 is 4.5, 21 plus years would be a 3%, and then anybody who is at, kind of this 91,000, which is what we consider as the maximum what it should be, would get a 3% bonus. So if you look at the instructional people, that would affect 19 people. We took out the JROTC people because that kind of skews it because they're not necessarily paid for, their entire salaries are paid for by the district. They get the Army supplement that goes along with that. And then for special instructional, the max part of that would be 104, which would be eligible then for the bonus. There are 0 people at that point. So all of our special instructional would fall back under these percentage increases.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
The bonus, pensionable?
Bonus is only the one time, so it can't be considered in that part.
Therein lies the rub. Oh, okay.
All right, you have another question, Kevin? Heather had her hand up.
Okay, so when we're looking at this for years X, and we're talking about with like special instructional, it's just wherever you lay, or are we also adding in the provision of like using resumes like you did for SPOUC? Because years X is real funky for anybody in special instruction.
Right. I mean, again, we value that, and that's, I think, where we would like to go into next year with the whole concept of basically what we did with SPOUC is really determining what years X means for everyone. And I know that for our special instructional people, that's probably pretty significant because I know over the years, there was been limits on what you could bring in, as far as experience related to that. There is certain, I don't know that, this time around, to be able to do that and meet all the deadlines would be near impossible. do years X the way it really should be done across the district, across all instructional staff. But like I said, there is definitely a commitment to do that, to work on that for next year.
Okay, another question, Heather?
I was thinking about the ability to do that retroactively. I mean, because there's some people that have it literally sitting there, but it's never been applied. It's like my co-counselor, she has 20 years experience, but I make more than her.
All right, Jay?
So in this case, 0 to 2 would all basically get a $4,000 raise, am I correct?
Yes,
So,
yes, that is.
That is not part of the compression adjustment. That's part of the 1% that was allocated out of that 30 million to bring everybody up to the 54.5.
so aren't we still creating some kind of compression, because you're giving 0 to 2 a $4,000 raise, but then when you look at the percentages times what people make in these other ranges, they're not getting 4,000.
No, if you noticed, they're right, the compression adjustment was only 4% for that 0 to 3 range, I think it was, which does not take into account then the increase in the starting salary. So again, incrementally, we would be working towards that compression. I feel like if we do what we need to do with years X and that starting salary is in place, next year we can actually even work harder towards compression. But one of the, like I said, the interest of the district is to raise that starting salary for recruitment and retention purposes.
I understand the interest of the district, but there's also the interest of, not the people on that 0, brand new teachers. I mean, I'm sorry, I have a hard time voting for a brand new teacher to get a $4,000 raise and me to get a $3,000 raise. I mean, it's just hard for people to swallow, and we want to ratify. We can't keep giving the bottom more and the top less, especially when those bottom people need us veterans to train them.
And again, I heard that, there is an interest of the district to raise that starting salary, which is, doesn't, again, meet completely all of the interest, but it does still total a 7% increase.
All right, Anna?
I just was curious on the difference between these two slides. Is this slide just like a story time and then the next slide is the option?
Yeah, it's this slide right here is really the rationale behind what our thought process was in adjusting our option to include compression and the other interest that we have on the table.
So this slide right here has nothing to do with the option. Because I'm confused with
It does. So if you go all the way over to the right, that would be the incremental average increases amongst those I don't know what to call them, years bands, right?
Okay.
So the bands that we have that address the compression, we've kind of equaled out. You can see that there's, on average, from really taking a look at 6 to 14, 15 to 20, and 21 plus, those are pretty equal as far as what the differential is of pay on average within those grade bands. So somebody that's here 10 years as opposed to somebody who's here 17 years, the person here 17 years, theoretically, according to this on average, would make 8%, would have an 8% jump per grade band, or years band. I want to call them grade bands, but they're year band. Almost like a salary schedule type.
year 6 through 20 essentially would get an 8% increase.
No, it's the increments above where they're at as opposed to the next level or years band.
No, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
So Anna, what this slide is saying is that, for example, somebody in years 6 through 14 on average makes $57,900. A person with 15 to 20 years on average makes 8.7% more than the 6 to 14 year person.
So that's that's all that is that it's just saying the percentage more that they make than those other bands.
Yes,
or
ma'am.
tiers. So then that, like I said, this is just story time. The option 22 compression is the next slide. That's the compression option.
Correct.
Okay,
That's
it
how
just
you
gets
get it.
confusing when there's percentages there, and then there's percentages here, they both say compression. I'm just making sure that I'm understanding it correctly. I know if I'm gonna forever say something. If I'm confused, there has to be somebody else confused, so I just wanna make sure that we're clear.
Okay, anybody else?
For me, it's interesting we have a discussion about interest, right? Because the board has multiple interests. 54, 5, and 9 minutes. Okay, two, right? Two interests. You seem to be getting 100% of your interest met. You're getting, in this plan, you're getting both of your interests met. And so, at some point, I know we've had this conversation before, bargaining is where both sides walk away not 100% happy and not 100% sad. So in this option, the district is getting all that it wants. Now, yes, we're getting bereavement. You are, because you only really want two things, 54-5.
The next slide, I'll show you the difference. Go ahead.
But again, Kerr is going to share with you some numbers because the math for him isn't math, okay? And so, like, when you look at the summary and it says 30-minute lunch, that's great. But if I get a 30-minute lunch and I'm a third-year teacher and my raise is $2,800 and a new teacher's raise is $4,000, shit, keep the 5 minutes and give me more money. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not sure why Kerr's math isn't matching yours, because we should be figuring from the same sheet of music. And so, yeah, this is, you know, and again, the 45-minute limit on monthly meetings, that's great, but I got news for you. Ain't a whole bunch doing more than 45 minutes. Some are probably doing less, and the places where they are doing 45 minutes, we're kind of fixing it now. And the bereavement and parental leave is a big deal, but to be honest with you, everybody else is doing it too. So again, I want to stay away from everybody that's entered into a contract lately is getting parental bereavement. And so I want to get away from the idea of we're the best of the worst, therefore we're the greatest. I mean, the things we're getting are good, but again, if my raise is $2,800 and the new teacher's raise is $4,000, keep the 5 minutes. I go out to dinner with my sister, who never had an education job, and she's consistently looking at me. And I said, I've been trained for 28 years like Pavlov's dogs to consume whatever food is in front of me in less than 25 minutes, because that's all we have. And that's in the best case scenario where you're not walking kids and waiting on them to get through line and having to pick them up. That's the best case scenario. So again, I'm having a difficult time with seeing how our interests are appropriately addressed. Because it appears as though the district asked for two things and they're getting all of it. And yes, we asked for the other stuff. But again, if my raise is $1,200 less than a new teacher, what's the 5 minutes at lunch? So, I mean,
So I think the response to that is, again, you know, the 30-minute lunch, the bereavement parental, and I think the parental leave too, and you have to acknowledge that the parental leave that we're putting in place here is unprecedented. There are districts who have looked at leave for parenting outside of sick and personal. The only other, the one that's closest to us is Orange County, I believe, who only has maternal leave in the case of natural birth. So ours is far-reaching to that. And I think, again, what also has to be considered when we talk about 4 weeks of parental leave and 3 days of bereavement leave, that actually adds on, especially with the terminal pay adjustment, that does add on to your benefit by working for the district, because you get to cash more of that in at the end when you retire. So there is a financial issue that is aligned with that for all of our employees. And quite honestly, again, I believe that because that's unprecedented, you know, we can't raise our starting salary to equal the surrounding districts, but the other two districts that border us do not have this. And so that's an idea for us that we feel like we could use for both recruitment and retention of our employees. The 7% total increase, and maybe the 2% isn't considered a raise, but it is an increase in income, again, is unprecedented across the state. We've not, the average, the highest increase that we've seen really is 2%. And so just in the compression adjustment with the additional 9 minutes is far and above that. And so, the total is 7%. And again, that's, if we go back to the initial interest in what the district had, they were a little bit different as far as supplements and those kinds of things, which, we kept the amount of money on the table, but removed some of those interests. So, according to this, I think we're pretty much equal in trying to meet each other's interests.
All right,
And I know Jill has her hand up.
well,
So-
several people have their hands
Okay.
up, and you said Kerr needed to speak about the money part of it,
I'll
so.
come back.
You can come back?
I'll-
All right. I don't know who was up first, Christina or Jill. All right, go ahead, Tina.
Ron, I just wanted to see if you would clarify. You said something about cashing out the parental leave or bereavement leave. Can you give me more information on that? Does that mean like if I leave the district after 13 years, I'm going to end up with some type of compensation if I've not used that leave?
If you retire, you get a percentage of your accumulated leave that you had, I don't know what the actual percentage is. So it's sick or vacation time. So if you don't have to use your sick time, you get to cash it in and really, again, you don't, like the terminal pay language allows that to happen, but there was a caveat in there that said you had to be vested for 10 years within the district in order. So removing that really is, anybody is eligible now for, I call it severance pay, that's what typically most people call it. Upon severance from the district, you get to cash out what you have in vacation and sick.
Okay, and I understand this is not to be rude, because in a different district in Georgia, when I adopted my child, originally they were trying to tell me I was not eligible for parental leave, so I get that. However, in this case, if luckily, I don't have a parent passing away anytime soon, but I'm also not going to give birth to anyone. So this is not necessarily a benefit that everybody's going to be able to reach out and use, those kinds of things. So yes, it's a benefit, and yes, it'll go to a lot of people, but it's not going to everyone. So to seem like this is a benefit for everybody across the board, I just wanted to make sure what I'm understanding and then also with the cash out.
All right, Jill. Ron, would you mind giving the mic to Jill? Thank you.
I just was gonna kind of say, along the lines of what Tina was saying, I want to say I think that providing parental leave, 4 weeks of parental leave is excellent. We're making progress, right? And we're giving what we can at this time. I hope that one day we can, at this bargaining table, give people what they deserve, which is like 12 weeks of parental leave. But right now, we're starting with 4. And it's a great benefit. You're right. It's going to be a great recruitment tool and a great retention tool. But when we look at the veterans who have been here a long time, it's hard to say, well, we've negotiated all these benefits. There are people that are going to say, okay, well, I had my baby 5 years ago and I used all of my leave. And then the next year I had no leave. And when my child got sick, I lost money in my check. And it's like I said, moving forward, I think this is wonderful. But we have to think about, when we put a compensation package, we have to think about everyone. And the same people who are also being adversely impacted by compression are probably the same people who won't benefit from a parental leave. So while we're doing great things, and yes, I agree with you, it's unprecedented, but it's also sad that we're saying that parental leave in a profession dominated by women is unprecedented. That in 2025, it's unprecedented that we give women barely leave for a major medical event in their life, right? And so, because you can't come back to work after you have a baby right away. It's not feasible. But, and again, I think this is great. Same thing with the bereavement. But we have to think about, being able to ratify this contract and what we're doing to support everyone, the people who are just coming to the district that are gonna benefit from these things, and the people that have been in the district for a long time who are looking at this and saying, okay, so a new teacher gets $4,000 raise, they're gonna get 20 days of parental leave, they're gonna get all of these things that, another teacher didn't get who's still struggling and trying to survive. So it's hard, right? Because like I said, these are great things, but we still have to think about the total package and how it affects all 6,000 teachers, not just certain pockets of teachers.
All right, anybody else? Kerr?
I have a question. Can you go back 2 slides? My intent isn't to nitpick this. I'm curious with the average salary. Do you, is that based on the extra 30 minutes that they work every week, or is that just based on 36 and a half, whatever, 37? Because when I get the data file from you all, I have to calculate the extra 30 minutes and add it in to make their annual salary correct. So I'm wondering if that's the difference in my calculations.
Yes, what you see does include the additional 30 minutes per week.
And I know that my data file is from August 12th, but some of the things we were looking at are how the average salaries somewhat decrease as you kind of go down the list here. So for example, the average salary for year 4 was about, oh man, I'm doing math on the floor, about $700 more than the average salary for year 5. So folks with 5 years of credible experience. So I know that's a small difference, but if we're applying this flat kind of 4 or 3%, whatever the percentage is here, that doesn't really address the fact that the average salary in year 5 is less than the average salary of year 4.
Does that make sense?
And further, if year 0 is, as some of my colleagues have said, are getting almost a $4,000 increase, based on my data, the increase from year 3 would be about $27.83 on average. So doesn't that create?
Unless they're below. So you gotta remember, so our folks that are below the 54.5, if you're at 53, then you would be brought up to that, and then that increase would still be on top of it.
Yeah, the average that I see for year 3 is over 54.5. So that's just, I'm just spot checking some things. So this causes some concern here. Maybe angst is a better word. Thank you, but yeah, I'm spot checking these things.
And Kerr, if I might add, in these numbers, we removed the JROTC teachers because there are some in these early years that are, 77,000 plus, so we did remove those from these numbers.
Are special instructional removed from these, or they're in there? They're in there for this one.
Just instructional, not special instructional.
So these calculations here do not take into consideration the 400, so.
They don't.
Okay.
No, and again, we had that conversation because, as stated before, our special instructional folks, I think, need probably to really take a look at. And that was one of the things we talked about early on when we introduced the pay grade, because that's where we thought we could make some of those adjustments if we worked on that. And I feel like that's, again, the commitment to next year to really look at the compression that exists within those.
So that makes the figures probably match a little better if you took out the special instructional part?
Probably.
Okay. Anybody else want to pass the mic to Anna, please?
Can you just go to the next slide, please? This compression adjustment, is this an average increase, or is it everyone in that year is getting that increase? Because in previous options, you said you've used that language average increase.
No, this would be the percentage increase for those grade levels.
Okay.
So wherever they're at would be, for example, if you're there 11 years, wherever you're at, you get 5% increase on it.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? That's all right, he's getting the steps.
All right, so like the three to 5 years, years X, 3%, does that include the 9 extra minutes?
No, this is just the correction. So is it on top of that? Did you hear that? So this is just the compression adjustment that does not include the 2%.
Thank you. Go ahead, Iris.
So if we don't include the special instructional, then how would we know the amount of compression that we're creating for special instructional? And then how do we meet that interest? Is it possible to have like a data request and have that information?
We kind of took a look at that. I don't know, I'm kind of looking at Kirsten, because we did try to run that. So definitely the adjustments to the special instructional were based just on this, because they're just kind of all over the board. There's no kind of rhyme or reason to where some people have, where they sit with it. Yeah, we know that. We do.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So, again, hitting on the special instructional. If I'm a special instructional employee, how do I figure out what my compression adjustment is if it's based on years X?
Still years X, yes.
So for those people who don't have years X, the appropriate level of years X, or those people who have years X that aren't there, that they have not been given credit for.
It's the same thing with teachers. I don't mean to cut you off, but it really is. That issue is the same with teachers when it came to years X. That's why we honestly and legitimately looked at years X and said, I'm not sure this is the appropriate one to use, because it doesn't take into account, just like the special instructional hasn't taken into account a lot of their experience that they brought into the district. And so that's part of the reason when we go back is why we looked at the whole pay grade deal, because you can actually have a system in place that addresses that. And then again, that's what we're committed to doing next year.
I think we need to caucus. Actually, I don't think, I know we need to caucus.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
Time frame?
20?
Okay.
With our caucus monitor.
Yes, got it.
She'll remember to set the timer this time.
Thank you. You want to give the caucus report for TALC, please?
Sure, we discussed, almost all the options that are out there. And kind of where we go from here. It's a tough sell when the salaries of new folks increase at such a higher rate than those that are already here. That's almost a non-starter for our team. So we spent a lot of time on that, and we have one more option that I'm hoping gets us over the finish line.
All right, you want to hold that option while Ron gives his caucus report?
I think, most of the discussion was just kind of diving deeper into the conversation about the raises, and I think the perception of where the raises are. So we really just tried to take a look at, the increase to go from $50,500 to $54,500 is $4,000. So we tried to take a look at each one of those years bands to see what the increases were. And really within each band, it's over $4,000. The last one is a little bit iffy. When you take the 2% and the compression adjustment, the raises in the long run are pretty consistent. Like to get to them, I know we just picked certain people out. The raise to go from $50,500 to $50 is $4,000. The grade band from 6 to 14, I think we picked out like 4 or 5 people in there, and the raise was $4,200 to $4,500. The next band was just over $4,000. So the 20 plus was close, but the higher the salary is, that 3% is actually a little bit more. It may just be at 4,000 or just under that. So when we looked at those, it's not that, I don't know if there's just the perception, because when you add in the 2% adjustment for the minutes on both ends, actual increases are fairly similar. We could give some examples of that, but.
Okay.
So in year 0, they would be working the extra 9 minutes, but their salary would be $54,500. They wouldn't be compensated for those additional 9 minutes?
So the increase, again, based on the order of operations, we keep saying that, you have to take that into account. So you apply the 2% across the board first, and then the adjustments take place after that. So you automatically go, for the 9 minutes, you go from 50,400 to, it's 2%, what, 50,000, 51,000. I think it was worth like 1,500. So now your starting salary actually is 51.5. So it's $1,000 increase, and then the compression adjustment takes care of that. But for those people, everybody who is still below that still gets the increase up to at least the 54.5. So that 2% is across the board for everybody. That 51.5 then, the amount of raise is no longer 7.5%, it's less than that. So so that's the difference in the order of operations. It still equals a $4,000 increase, but the way you look at the percentages is different based on the order of operations. Did I explain that right?
So to clarify, it's a $4,000 increase, but it includes those 45 minutes.
Yes.
And how many people in like years 1 and 2 would only be brought to the 54.5? Approximately, yeah, I don't need an exact number,
Give me a second.
approximately. Yeah, an average.
So, well, no, I'm sorry, this is years out.
I was looking at the.
I know we did that for the last presentation, but it was based on years L, like how many teachers were at 0? It was 548, 486 at 1, 422 at 2. So, you're probably looking at the number of teachers with 3 years or less, because I'm assuming years L is probably years X for them. based on that, so you're probably close to 2,000 teachers that are in that, four or less.
I'm just looking for years 2 and 3.
You said years 1 and 2.
I'm sorry, 1 and 2, I'm sorry, you're right, 1 and 2.
So in years 1 and 2, there are,
In years 1 and 2, there are 728 that would be impacted by increasing the minimum up to the 54.5.
So a year 3 or 2 person would be making the same as a first year teacher?
No, because in year 3, they're also getting. Yeah.
So 0 and 1 would be making the same. 0, 1, and 2.
Can you say that one more time?
So basically 0, 1, and 2 would all be making 54.5. Years 0, 1, and 2 would all be making 54.5.
Well, not all years 1 and 2, just some of them. Because there's, 728 with years 1 and 2 that are going up. Some teachers are already above that.
Based on what they came in with. Did that make sense, Shay? Some of the people came in higher than that because they brought some years of experience in.
We think your year X would be 1 or 2.
But then their year X wouldn't be 1 or 2.
Years. Yeah. That include the JROTC. I can look to see how many are not impacted.
No, I mean, this just goes back to, I have 1 year of experience, let's just say, but I'm making the same as a new teacher. Where we're on the other end, when we're looking at the veteran teachers, I know the ones that you pulled out, you're saying are about the same, but that's not everyone's case, and we're here for everyone. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
That's it to Anna, please.
I'm just curious, are there any employees that are in maybe years 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that currently do not make 54,500? And how would this impact those teachers?
Yeah, Anna, to answer your question, yes, there are teachers, 3, 4 plus years making below the 54.5 minimum. So in that case, they would get bumped up to 54.5 minimum, and then say the 3 to 5 year range would get an additional 3% compression adjustment.
So their order of operations would be 2 minutes, 2%, 9 minutes, bump up to 54.5 if they're still less, and then they would get whatever compression increase.
You got it.
So are there teachers around the year 10 mark that are currently not making 54,500? And if so, how many of them?
We can get the number for how many, but yes, there are some that are making below the 54.5. At year 10, yes. So for them, they would get bumped up, and then they would also get the 5% compression.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Kevin.
Sorry, I'm still fighting this, whatever it is. So, I guess there's a small level of disappointment, and I'm just gonna explain why. And this is perhaps the flaw in interest-based that we have discussed. Everything is fine in interest-based until we start talking about salary. And then we kind of retreat to traditional market, which may be inevitable, or it may be fixable with better people than me at the table, right? I don't know. I'm willing to argue that it's either thing. But when we talk about interest, right, you seem to be saying, these are the district's interests, and we seem to be saying these are TALC's interests. We have really abandoned the idea of shared interest. And for me, So let's take the 9 minutes, for instance, right? The 9 minutes was a district interest, okay? Well, it was a district interest. Well, I mean, I said, you know, we could move to an 8-hour day over a few years, right? Right, yeah, so the first iteration of the 9 minutes was, you know, we're so generous that you could just work 9 minutes for free, right? Which is, kind of hyperbole, but that's essentially what it boiled down to. And then our response was, well, that's a non-starter, right? And then at the other end, so the district heard that and came back with the idea that we would pay people for 9 minutes. Then the argument is, how are we protecting that time? We seem to be working towards a plan that protects that time, so it can't be put in that gray area where it's kind of, I can tell you what to do because I've met the other requirements, right? And so again, the district's interest was 54.5. We have come up with a plan and presented an option that, got almost no questions from the district side, where we are $428 short of that. Our plan puts it at $50,072, or $54.72. Oh, we haven't put that one up yet? Oh, sorry. I thought we put that one
No,
up.
everybody's asking questions. Her hasn't had a chance yet.
I thought we put that one up. Sorry.
You all had questions on
Okay, well, we will have a
report.
plan that gets us within $428. I thought we put that one up too.
No.
$428.
You have not put it up.
So I think, yeah, let's let them put it up. I thought we put it up. In my mind, I was 10 miles down the road.
All right. Let's put the option up then.
I had a funny Jurassic Park quote and everything for that one.
I thought we put it up.
All right, so hang on, let me get to mine. So we believe that this meets many of the options. And Amy, I'll just paste it in.
Okay, thank you.
Many of the interest you mean?
Thank you, interest, not options. Retention, equity, not just increasing starting salaries, but increasing everybody's. Competitiveness, I'm just trying to find where in the document to paste that.
Option 23, on the left-hand side, there is hot, table of contents, 10,
So I only see option 20.
21, hit refresh.
Oh, I'm in the wrong one.
Okay. I'm trying to find a better system.
There we go. That didn't work.
I don't know what you did.
There you go.
It was in a table before. Let me see if I can fix some of that. That makes it a little easier. There you go.
All right.
What, all that other stuff before?
Yeah, I'll get that. So I'll add all the parental, all that other stuff.
I'll get that too.
So this option gets as close to 54 as I think we've been able to get. As Kevin said, we're $428 off. 9 minutes per day, we've all said that's equivalent of almost a 2% increase for additional work. And then you'll see in this column a proposed raise from 5 to 7%. We believe that this doesn't entirely decompress everything, but we think that it meets as many of our shared interests as possible with the resources that are available and some of the constraints that both sides have put up here. I mean, hell, if we had 35 million, we could get to 54.5, no problem. But it looks like we have around 30. So we are working entirely within those constraints. I would say also with this option, this one's easy to understand. And options should be easy to understand because I'm thinking back in the days, I don't know who all was here. Rob, do you remember targeted market adjustments? and everybody got an increase, but if you were in year 10, you got an additional $300, and if you're in year 16, you got an additional $500. That was so hard to understand and to explain. It worked, but it was hard to explain. And I'm hoping that this one is easy to explain. Feel that we've come a long way to meet in the middle, not just to address management's desires, but to also address the interests of our membership. And so with this option, we're asking you to come a little bit closer to the middle and reach a deal. And I'm gonna add the other stuff in there from our other ones. And I'll add the special instructional salary too. I'm just gonna put the mic down.
Okay, questions? Rob?
How did you arrive at 54,072?
Pulled it out of the hat.
$430 was too much to ask, so 428.
And a 5% raise instead of 4.9 blah 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 whatever. What's $72? It was using every bit of the money that we had and not mucking with this percent here, like I did in my first option way back ago that made it a really nice number.
So the cost of this is what exactly? You said around 30? Is that
Yeah,
what
it was just over 30, I believe. But I'm also working on some data that's a little older because we've been bargaining a lot. So based on my data, it's just over 30.
All right, thanks.
Anybody else? Ron?
I don't have any other questions. I think we probably need to go back and do some quick calculations.
Okay.
And figure out what kind of questions we might have.
That's fine. Another 20 minutes? Okay, another 20 minutes.
Okay.
If you want to keep it or trade it.
Do you want to keep it or trade it? Deal or no?
Okay. Ron, you guys called the caucus, so you want to give the report first?
Yeah, so in our caucus, we just kind of took a look at the options and tried to run some numbers. I think we have a pretty large discrepancy as far as the cost of that option, which we may have to redo or take some time to do that. But, so we have the cost of the option, just the compression alone, and only for instructional, not special instructional, comes out to 24.8 million. Which, then again, so if you add the special instructional and the 2%, you're looking at close to 40 million in cost.
Yeah, I mean, the data file we're working on is last month, so I know that you all have added a lot of teachers to the payroll, so I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, anything else from your caucus, or?
Yeah, just had a conversation about the 9 minutes, and one of the things we talked about was, and again, had talked to a couple principals who have talked to some of their staff about that they feel like it would be, for this year, pretty hard to manage with kind of people all over the place with the 9 minutes. So what we talked about was, within that 9 minutes, allowing those buildings to kind of call their calendar committee back together, or their leadership, and present some options and come to consensus on what that looks like per building so that we can manage that. One of the buildings did that, and they came up and their teacher said at the middle school level that if this were to happen, we would prefer to do it the 9 additional minutes at the beginning of the day, because we're probably gonna be there anyway, because they have to get there to beat the drop-off traffic. So those are the kinds of examples we would want to promote with 9 minutes. For this year, I think we can, if we know that that's gonna be the case next time around, we can talk about what that looks like. So those are the two issues we have, 40 million and some differences in the 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Before we dive into the 9 minutes, I want Kerr to give his caucus report. We've been pretty deep in the 9 minutes already.
We just, we discussed all the options and where to go from here.
Okay. Short and sweet. Kevin, did you want to say something, or do you want to pass it down to Anna?
I can say something, maybe Anna's gonna say the same thing. We used to have a calculator we could project on the screen. And this has been years, I can't remember how long, but this has been years. We used to have like a spreadsheet that we could plug like the framework, like the tiers. We could plug it in and we could make real-time changes and see how that affected the bottom line number. You see what I'm saying? So I think, and Anna brought this up in caucus, and if she's gonna say this, I'm, okay, good. She mentioned that it cut down on the amount of caucuses, because anybody at the table could say, change that to 4.75%, and it would alter the number in real time. So I don't know if there's anybody, I don't want to say left, but if there's anybody, that's beyond my Excel prowess, I'm just gonna put that out there. But if we go to next time, it would be good if we could have that, so we could like make these real-time things. And also, I think for me, and again, this doesn't have to be answered right now, but it appears as though 54.5 is a pretty concrete line. I mean, maybe not, but and I don't know, like, we've got 54.72. So maybe 5,400 frees up money to do other things or brings the cost down. I'm not gonna say it's gonna bring the cost down enough to make a difference, but quarters make dollars and dollars make fives and fives, make whatever. So I think at this point, we have kind of coalesced around some ideas. And it's kind of tiered raises maybe, and it's raising the base pay to a number that honestly, you can ratify with the board, and we can ratify with our people. Because again, it may not be what everybody wants, It may not be as low as we want it, but it also may not be as high as you want it. And then that also gives us the opportunity to say, listen, for maybe you guys to say, listen, you know, $2 million solves the problem. Because we are this morning we were this close, we went back to this close, and I think we're like this close. And what I think I feel and see all over the place. So that's just kind of where I'm at on things, and I think that a compromise is here to be made and a deal is here to be done that doesn't necessarily get everybody everything they want, but gets everybody enough to where they're reasonably okay.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it down to Anna.
Go get some water, it helps you.
She has water.
That's why I just took water, swallow from.
I'm just wondering if someone can help clarify to me how the 9 extra minutes, 45 minutes a week is hard to manage, because one of the things that I think is important is having flexibility with this. I work way more than the extra 30 minutes. I work way more than the 45 minutes every single morning. I clock in at 7 a.m. every single morning. That's an hour a day that I work. Plus, I stay an extra 30 minutes on Tuesday because the time that I'm working is hard to manage. So what needs to be managed with this time where we can't trust our employees as professionals and take it upon the people who aren't doing it? The people, we have cameras everywhere. We can see when you're parking, when you're leaving. Like, can we not hold those employees accountable for something and have the rest of us? I just don't understand what is hard to manage and what needs to be managed. I get we need to make sure that our employees are working it and not just paying it, but I think it's frustrating when employees are told, well, we have to make sure everyone's doing it and we can't do it here, but we're all working. I mean, I'm just gonna keep talking in circles, but it is frustrating. So if someone can please shed the light on me, the administrators or whoever, what is it that needs to be managed?
Okay, anybody? Carl.
The manageability piece comes in, and what I've been listening to is making sure it is manageable. So what we were saying is that to have every individual, if you have a general understanding, whether it's early, whether it's late, there needs to be some type of agreement of what you're actually managing. So what we want to avoid, of course, is this person says, I'm going to do all of my minutes on Tuesday. Another person says, I want to do my minutes, in the morning. There needs to be a general consensus at the building level of what it looks like, the manageability piece. And I know it may be hard to believe, but it's very difficult to say then what happens if we go into just strict camera monitoring? Now I feel like we're insulting even more so the professionalism of the teachers. So just a general structure so that we know what it really looks like. Because otherwise it could become a whole bunch of different things. Now, I don't know whether any of the other school-based people, for me it's not gonna be an issue anyway, but I'm just thinking, I'm not thinking just at my building, I'm just thinking in terms of everyone's building.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Jump in next.
Right, I'm just thinking about parents who have children they need to pick up or drop off at daycare, and everybody's schedule is gonna be a little different, especially this year with it just being implemented. So I think there almost needs to be some flexibility from administration based on everybody's schedule this year is gonna be a little bit different.
Okay. Kirk.
I was going to say that piece, and also, I mean, from our standpoint, the extra 9 minutes a day or 45 a week is, as I put, self-directed professional time. Is that not the intent, like, from the other side? If everybody wants to do their 45 minutes in a different way, and it's their time to do it, I mean, they're not doing hall duty or buses or things like that.
I understand what you're saying. I think that from the district perspective, and again, having different people coming in at different times or saying, today I'm gonna stay for a half hour or something along those lines would be difficult. And I could see that presenting some problems. So the feedback, that we got was, we think there's flexibility built in to allow the buildings to make that decision on what they wanna do. As, some of the examples that I gave you, most of the folks just said, hey, at the high school level, they may wanna tack on those minutes at the end of the day. The middle school, it made sense to them to tack on the minutes at the beginning. So I think that the ability to let each building decide, we have a process in place, which is currently in the contract, that talks about participatory decision-making. Why not use it?
All right, Brandy?
So I know one of the questions was asked as far as from a flexibility standpoint, and I also was one of those people that was always in the classroom or staying late or whatever, but we as administrators sometimes have to sign off on things like Title I, and we have to verify X number of minutes were worked. And so we're signing off to document that, but I think that what we also have to remember is, as administrators, even if my calendar committee were to say, you're gonna work 5 extra in the morning and 4 extra in the afternoon, I still have the flexibility to work with individual teachers to work with those needs. So I think maybe that's where we would have to put something out there to recognize that, like, I may have somebody who can't drop their kid off at daycare until X, well then that's my job to work with that individual teacher, but instead of trying to manage 107 different schedules that my teachers come up with, I'm gonna have one schedule and I may have 8 teachers that I have to make special accommodations for. Because we do that now at times, like, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment, can I shift this here? And that, like, we do have availability within the work week to do shifts as needed. It allows us to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And then I guess, can I add one more thing really quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Just because, out of curiosity, how does the proposal address compression? So I just was curious, the one that TALC came up with, and again, because I haven't played that, to look at like individual salaries, and does that, because I feel like it was when we were talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like the 10 to 14 or 6 to 14, like that group of people that kind of are squished in the middle, and it threw them off. I mean, I was kind of joking that I like it because administrators usually follow whatever teacher contracts are, and I'm over 21. But thinking about what does that do to that group of people, I guess was my only worry.
May I answer that question?
Yeah, but let Brady
Okay.
So I guess I have 2 answers to that. One, it doesn't do harm. It doesn't fix the issue. But I think what we've identified here is
When we have the following constraints, $54,500 as a new salary,
$30 million,
and we're looking at
tiers of employees that range from 0 years to
20 plus, we can't do all of it in those constraints.
And so I think our team feels that, I'm looking at my percentages here, that these percentages
reflect the fact that it's all the money, well, not all the money, that a large portion of the money is not
just going to
new employees and or folks that aren't even hired yet. And we are
giving a nod to
those who have worked in teaching for more than
2 years.
If we had 35, 40 million,
we could make this look
really nice.
But in these constraints, we have to make some choices.
Okay, Shay, do you still need to? Okay.
So I'm going back to the 9 minutes. Why couldn't could each school do a waiver vote like we used to do when we had that in-service day in February, and we would. So like, we used to be able to do that in-service day in February, you could vote if you wanted to move it to like the Saturday for an open house. Couldn't each school just do that to work through their 9 minutes a day or a week or whatever?
Theoretically, they could, we just think that it's a better option to have the current contract language go into effect and allow those buildings to do as a whole, participatory decision-making and come up with whether they wanna do it, one of 3 or 4 different options to manage it.
And even that,
Might be a case where they might wanna create a waiver from that, they could do that as well. For anything in the contract, pretty much.
Yeah.
I guess we really
Don't bargain based on waivers though.
I was just curious how we came upon this $30 million number, because I believe a few sessions ago, you guys said that you had not gone to the board to get board authority. So how do we know that board authority or the money that we have is $30 million?
That was, again, based on after the first couple sessions, we didn't go to the board from the beginning and say, tell us how much we have on the table for that, and then try to figure out where we're at. An example is that, and I think you know this, is what, as we've gone through these sessions and put options on the table, the interests have been adjusted. And we've tried to listen to say, okay, we want to address, we definitely want minutes. That has a direct impact for us on student achievement, making sure that we have the ability to meet the requirements of the current contract with 60 minutes a day of planning. And again, if we want to move some of those start times and end times, again, based on student achievement, what's best for students. We didn't do anything with the middle school, that may be part of the conversation, and having that flexibility moving into next year would be the key. I don't know how long it's going to take us to bargain next year, so we're thinking about that now. So again, to answer your question is, went to the board and said, these are the interests that we have. We feel like this would be an amount of money to make the interest. So again, we didn't go to the board from the beginning before we started to have discussions about what our interests are. So that's the difference than what we've had in the past.
So in
Again, I continue to say that over and over again, and we still keep saying, well, did the board give you the bargaining authority? They gave us the authority based on the interest, and that's what the expectation is, that we meet the interest. We changed those, as you remember, when we came back after the summer, there was $30 million, but the options look much, much different. And so we adjusted those to say, okay, one of the things we said was, as Kevin pointed out, we asked for 9 minutes without really paying for it. We came back and said, you know what? That was brought up at the table. Now we have the opportunity to give the additional 9 minutes. Actually was part of the original option that TALC presented. So that's how we've adjusted along the way to take into account what our original interests were and the cost we thought from the budget standpoint that was feasible. And you got to remember that represents a 7% increase, which is way higher than anybody else in the state of Florida. And so that was the idea that $30 million is a lot of money, especially in this day and age, and 7% increase is 5% over what any other district in the state of Florida. And that again is based on the idea that we got basically 0% increase in the state budget. And so everything we were talking about, and we can debate, what that reserve looks like, but from the budget standpoint, and again, being able to continue to have these conversations on a yearly basis so we don't end up like Brevard County and are only able to offer 2%, that's all part of these conversations.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
So in theory, if we through our interest-based process decided that, for example, option 23, even though it was, a little bit more than 30 million, was the best thing for our employees, then, and that's what we agreed upon here at the table, we could still then take that to the board?
If we agreed upon it.
Okay.
But the key is whether or not we agree upon that.
the reason for looking, but I'll just ask a question. How much did the state put aside for TSA this year?
Just over 3 million.
Thank you.
Well,
Let me clarify that too. That's what they said you must spend on teacher salaries was the 3 million, 3.1, 3.5. So again, we're about 16.5 million, no, $26.5 million over there.
Kevin?
Yeah, so, I guess I have multiple things, and I'm gonna start with, and again, this is turning into turnaround, or whatever we're calling it, with this 9 minutes. We're just focusing on this 9 minutes, and I think it's important we have a discussion about, we all wanna say teachers are professionals, right up until we have to micromanage them over 9 minutes. If teachers are professionals, then the 9 minutes is what the 9 minutes is. I mean, they're professionals, right? I mean, Kerr is FEA staff. He is paid a salary. I was just at a governance board meeting. We were having kind of a meeting of the presidents, and it was expressed to us that Kerr is a professional, he gets a salary. That means if he works Tuesday, that means he works late tonight, and I don't see him until 9 o'clock tomorrow or 10 o'clock tomorrow, that's cool because he's a professional. If we have the rep training this Saturday from 9 to 3, and he doesn't even come in on Monday, that's cool because he's a professional. Teachers are professionals, right up until micromanaging. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm very troubled by the idea that we negotiate this 9 minutes as teacher-directed time, and in February, you come back and say, too bad, that's gray minute time? That we're no longer gonna make that teacher-directed time because we wanna change student contact time at middle school? That's disturbing to me and not transparent, to be honest with you. It's not transparent. So, I mean, if it's teacher-directed time today, it's teacher-directed time tomorrow, it's teacher-directed time July 2nd, 2027, after there's somebody else in this chair. I mean, to give somebody 9 minutes of teacher-directed time this year, and then when we come back in February, the district possibly say, well, we want to talk about that 9 minutes again, and we really need that to be, we're not going to change the planning number, we're not going to change the lunch number, but it's not going to be teacher-directed time anymore, which is kind of the vibe I'm getting, is troubling to me. And lastly, on the idea of the $30 million, it's interesting that every proposal has to align with the number that aligned with your interest. When we talked about paying the 9 minutes, the conversation easily could have been, hey, we know we told you 9 minutes, but that wasn't $30 million, but that wasn't paying the 9 minutes. Now that we want to do the right thing and pay TALC for 9 minutes, that's going to cost an extra $4 million. So now the new joint interest that we agreed to build and present to the board is $35 million. And so that's where I think the frustration is coming from, that every deal has to meet the exact number that your original plan that you said met the interest totaled to. And that's the problem. Again, my deal was $70 million. I'm gonna be honest with you, I knew I wasn't getting 70. But we had to put it all on the board so we could see what it cost. And so, in my opinion, we should have taken that and built a deal and come up with a number together, not the district saying, we took the interest and we did what we wanted to do and it cost $30 million and the board told us that was cool, but it's not bargaining authority, but a deal better not be over $30 million. That's where my frustration is coming about this, because I do like the new idea about this salary where we build it at the table together. But over the summer, it could have been, hey, TALC really needs to get paid for the 9 minutes. That's in our interest too. That pushes the price to $35 million. Is that cool? Because again, as Kerr said, if we had 35, a lot of other things get fixed. And so that's kind of where I'm at in this whole thing about, are we professionals or are we not? Because people who manage non-professionals worry about 9 minutes. I don't worry about 9 minutes with Kerr and Lois and Cassie. I don't worry about it. I know I won't see Kerr till later tomorrow morning, because he's here tonight. I know that. I call him and talk to him, but I won't see him. Professional. Saturday, all day. Probably won't see him on Monday. Professional. So again, I think we need to really have this conversation about, are we professional and are we trustworthy with our 9 minutes? Will that 9 minutes continue to be teacher-controlled time? You know, what is this deal with everything has to be $30 million, because that was the price tag of the plan you built based on our interest, not the plan we built based on our interest. And that, you know, that's where I'm at. And I really am concerned about if we're gonna allow calendar committees, which I don't have full faith and confidence that they meet at 60% of the building. And they might meet at 60% of the buildings. So I don't have full faith and confidence in that. And I don't have the bandwidth to ensure that happens. But what do we really need to put in writing that if somebody says they can't do what the calendar committee decided, the administrator will flex the time. Because it's great, I believe, Ms. Maki, I believe she will and has. But I don't have that confidence across the district. And until I do, that's a problem. So that's my tirade at 6:45.
All right. Jay?
So our last option you said was around, I forget, I know bigger than 30 million.
40 million.
40 million.
And
Okay.
that
Could you give me the
was-
breakdown and let me tell you the reason why I'm asking. So I'm looking at the proposed rates, the 5, 5.5, 6, 7. We already know the 9 minutes is around 8 million, parent improvement is around 2 million. So those percentages are much less than option 6, the real big one we put out. Those are a lot less. And at that time, you guys said that was 33 million. So I guess, could we get a breakdown of the exact amount? Because I mean, like, we had it broken down here.
Did I say, I don't remember 33, but,
It's right here in the.
I mean, 30 million is kind of what we've looked at, and
It's, so,
great.
in option 6, you guys, because we talked during option 6, and then we broke down how many people were in 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 through 14, so on and so on. And then it was added in here, the total pass-throughs back then, we had asked for the 1,500 was 8 million, and then the total for percentage increase was 33 million. Which is, if I recall correctly, we go back to then, and this is a long time ago, Amy had gone through and calculated.
I'm sorry, but I think that's your
It was our option.
option.
It was our proposal.
We didn't, yeah.
But you guys had, I thought, costed it out for us during that time.
No, you costed it out.
What? Either way, can you just cost out based on how many people in it, just so we can see where we're at in those numbers?
For option 23.
Yeah,
Yes,
That's where we are, yeah.
yes.
so what we came up with, I think it's over 20 million just for the compression adjustment, just for instructional. The total cost of the issue, so I don't know if you just took salary increase and tried to determine it that way, but we're talking about the total cost of the option.
What I'm asking is, can you break down based on the people in that bandwidth and the percentage, what the amounts are?
On your option or the last option we put?
On the last option we put up,
The one, last option you put.
23.
So you want to know the 9.14% increase for all those teachers that are 20 plus.
I only want to know,
I'm just trying to clarify what you're asking.
and this is what we used to do, and it's so much easier for everyone to see. We used to say, okay, from 1 to 9, there's 2,000 people. If those 2,000 people move 5.5%, this is the cost.
The spreadsheet, I know what you're asking.
I need an updated data file. Just send me an updated data file, please, with everybody's salaries and everything.
Yeah, that's, okay, that'd be great.
Also give the exact same data file we're working on.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
That might make sense.
So, I know we're getting close to some deadlines that we had to meet. We talked about tonight being kind of the night that we thought we might be able to come to an agreement, and we're not there. Obviously, I think we're a little bit farther than maybe Kevin kind of thought we were based on that. I mean, we're still about $10 million apart, and we don't agree on how we integrate the minutes into that. I don't know, in your standpoint, at what point do we put an option to the test? Because I'd like to see what, the total consensus would be, and our last option, I'd be more than happy to put that up ask for a test for that.
I'm fine with testing an option, but I think the option will, as they say in Washington, pass or fail on party line. And so I could throw ours in. I'll put my $70 million option to the test. I'm more than happy to do that. I bet I know how that turns out. So again, this is like consensus, and we're not at consensus.
No, we're not.
And so you say 10 million, yeah, maybe, it'd be nice if we had the data you were working from the whole time, but that's cool, we'll get it for next time. And I don't wanna lay blame at anybody, but it'd be cool. So again, we're figuring from the same sheet of music helps. And again, Kurt will probably be able to, figure that real-time calculator for next time that we can put up there. And again, but I think it's important for TALC to know how far off of 54.5 is too far off. Was the 54.72 okay? I mean, 53 was obviously too far off. So I mean, all the bigger we do in the world, if you've got to have 54.5 or nothing, this may not happen.
Right.
So I mean, I
we
don't
talked
want
about
to say that.
54.5 is the reason that 54.5 is what it is. We didn't just pick an arbitrary number. So we had some folks come in and talk about, and this was, again, based on the conversations, how do we compete with the districts around us? So I'm just explaining where the 54.5 came from.
Gotcha.
Was really an adjustment based on cost of living, and that was what we felt with the other things that we could attract folks, including parental and bereavement leave, felt like that was a pretty good deal for what we have and what we can budget at this point. So I know you go back, but the district has an obligation from a budget standpoint to figure out what is a number, again, based on that. So what are the interests first? Okay, let's look at what those interests are and what the budget can hold for this year, and that's how that decision is made. That's typical in just about any other district. Somebody goes and makes a decision like, what can you afford?
And I get that,
Yeah.
but
That's what will happen.
Right, and so I get that, and that's cool, and listen, I have a household budget, I have a TALC budget, so I get it, all right? But I also think it's appropriate, if we're gonna talk now, let's talk. Where's your AFR? And how does that compare to the budget you presented to the state at the beginning of the year? Of that year, where's the AFR? Do we have that yet? Because the AFR will tell me what you budgeted and what you spent and what is actually left over. We were at labor management, and there was a proposal made to bring supplements for certain special instructional units, and we asked what we always ask, which is where does the money come from? And all of a sudden somebody from the district said, well, we budget for these employees, but we're not filling the positions, so that money is left over. What a revelation. I've been asking to do that for 8 years. So let's look at the AFR. Let's dig, and I'm going to be honest with you too. As much as I want a deal by October 1st, it's not the union's deadline. It's the district's deadline. And that is what it is. And you can say I'm grandstanding or whatever. And I agree with you. I don't agree that deadline should exist. I know they didn't pass the budget on time, which means you couldn't come up with the number on time. But in the world of life, The people that run the district from an elected political point of view are all friends with them. So they didn't call them and say, I need extra time. And as far as competitiveness is concerned, this district will never be truly competitive until we decide the state doesn't give us enough money. Because I got news for you, bereavement and parental is coming in Charlotte. It's coming in Collier. It's coming. And they're still gonna make more. So this idea of thirsting for the base pay, for the starting pay, to stay competitive, neglects the fact that the state doesn't give us any money. I freely agree with that. Nothing. But until we decide we are going to have a local option for raising funds, and again, everybody at the board and the superintendent, who's all friends with everybody in Tallahassee and everybody on the county commission, buddy, until they decide they need a local option, we're always gonna be chasing competitiveness.
Yeah.
It's really not, it's not the venue.
We're getting
We only
off
have a
track
weekend
here.
to have the,
Okay.
to work with here,
And
so.
we talked about it a million times. Would you pass the mic to Tina, please? And then to Anna.
All right,
No, Tina had her hand up first.
I was just joking.
Ron, you said that it was recommended by another group that the cost of living for the base pay should go up by 4,000. I'm asking.
No, I think we did, you know, and actually it was a conversation that we've had through labor management, which was, you know, the long time ago, when I was actually new to the position, Kevin kind of brought to our attention that, you know, other districts surrounding us were raising their starting pay, and it was gonna be very difficult for us to do that. So actually, we gathered some data to take a look at that. We've gathered data across the state. So, you know, what that represents is an adjustment based on, obviously, the cost of living in Collier is higher. Their starting salary is 57. So adjusted for the cost of living, 54.5 would be that would be the recommendation based on people who do that stuff all the time. That's
So as a follow-up, how is it that it's okay to do an adjustment for the base only, but not for the rest of the teachers in the district? Which is basically what we were asking, I think, in option 18, that if the base is going up by 4,000, why isn't everybody else going up by 4,000?
Well, again, I think we're trying to meet those interests in doing so. It's just not, you know, that would have taken 40 million. So what do we do or to be able to?
So what do we do to that? And this is gonna sound terrible maybe for people who like this option, but can't we just drop 9 minutes for now and then talk about it in February? So
No, that's not a feasible, that would be unacceptable as far as a vote is concerned.
So, and that's
I
kind
mean, I
of,
hate to say, go ahead, I'm sorry.
that's kind of along the lines of Tina said, some things that I had written down, because when you were explaining the 54.5, I also heard that cost of a living adjustment, and the notes that I wrote down is that does not go to everyone. And I have a hard time being able to agree with something that gives people who have been here longer, and even those of us that are in the middle. I recognize that you guys in option maybe 22, where you looked at years 6 through 14, and you looked at those years 15 through 20, and you said, hey, this is a problem here. You guys identified that. I appreciate that, because it is a problem. And there was those of us that were here in those same years that when we went to 47.5, we were impacted by that. Now when we go to 54.5, we're gonna be impacted by that. And so when we look at coming closer and trying to get an agreement, that 54.5, that increase doesn't go to everyone. I have a difficult time with addressing compression where people that are in those years aren't even getting that 4,000 increase. And with the 9 minutes, I think it's very difficult to, when I look at the language in the calendar committee, that's 4 people at a school site, 2 administrators and 2 teachers. Those 4 people are going to determine how the rest of the employees in that building work 9 minutes. There are people who have multiple jobs that have commitments to get there. There's people who have kids that need to get to sports. it's difficult now to even make a doctor's appointment because of the changes with elementary time. I can't make it to my doctor, that's a half day that I have to take off. And so it's like, I just feel like we're getting closer and then we like throw in an extra thing to it, and I just.
So, I mean, with all due respect, we haven't changed that from that being an option, and we kind of, again, bounced back and forth with, at one point, it was actually presented by TALC, and we took that and implemented it, and then we had what we thought was a decent deal with, and we used years L for a particular reason, because we didn't think, and again, we think we've confirmed this, that years X isn't the best option for that. So, we adjusted that to years X, and that's, I just think we're farther apart, and I think at some point we have to discuss whether or not we continue these sessions, or do we declare impasse?
So, I mean, I'm willing to talk as long as we're willing to talk. Okay, that's what listen, for me, even though everybody loves strikes and stuff, a strike is a failure to communicate. War is a failure to communicate, right? So I will talk as long. Doesn't bother me. I'm a professional. I don't get any extra money for being here. But I have a question related to, you guys said that 54.5 is kind of the equivalent, because of cost of living differences, to what it would be the 57 in Collier, right?
Was about a 6.5%, 7%.
So I guess my question is there any employee of the TALC bargaining unit that doesn't have a cost of living difference to Collier County? So if we have a 20-year teacher in Lee County and they make, let's say, $59,000, is that equivalent for cost of living to what a 20-year teacher in Collier makes? Because if there is a point at which it is the same, and the 58 for the 20-year person here is equivalent to the 67, let's say, that a 20-year person in Collier makes, your argument for increasing the base to 54.5 makes sense. But not unless you address every point where the cost of living difference is different. So I think it's important for us to say, yeah, we want to, maybe the district maybe wants to make sure that base starting pay is competitive in a cost of living perspective, but TALC wants to say, we want every salary. I want every salary to be more, but that takes $70 million, and that takes a millage, and that takes some backbone by the elected officials in this district, which I'm not going to get. And I know I'm not going to get. I'm concerned we're not going to have the half pay, but that's neither here nor there, because I'll be on the golf course, right? So is there any number that a teacher makes or a member of my bargaining unit makes that is cost of living equivalent to Collier County, or is everybody under? And if everybody's under, why are we so focused on making sure new people are cost of living equivalent to Collier County?
Yeah, I don't have that. And again, the option in good faith to take back and readjust what we tried to present that point, because one of the options you presented was basically a $4,000 increase. So we took those compression adjustments to figure out what that would look like so we can get everybody to a level where at least they got something similar to that. Again, based on what you gave us at the last time around. So, in good faith, to take the feedback we get and develop an option that I think is what, meets some of the concerns it brought up, is exactly what we did. I gotta be honest, I feel like every time we come back with something, we feel like, okay, this is what we asked for. Here's something that I think you asked for. No, that's not good enough. It's whatever, because we haven't moved off the idea that we want the starting salary to be at a certain level, and we need additional minutes to do that. And in exchange for that, there's a 7% increase in all the other leaves that are on the table. We're never going to come away with, exactly meeting all of those needs, but we're working towards those. And I think the commitment next year to establish pay grades, take care of more of our special instructional people, and do those kinds of things is part of what we're trying to get towards. Can't do it all in 1 year, though. And again, if we did 30 million this year, 30 million next year, now we're above your 66 million that you put on the table, and how we get there is just part of what we're doing here. But again, I understand that you want to, we would like to get money to the people. And this is the option that I think is fair, a 7% increase. With that, we can put in people's pockets by December. And the longer we continue this, knowing this, we're that far apart, I think is a problem for the district and in general. Let's get money in some people's pockets.
Okay, Shay.
I apologize, I was in the restroom, so I came on the tail end of something. Did you say that the 9 minutes, like, what's the word, is like, that's, has to be in there, it's like not negotiable?
From our standpoint, based on the conversation, we would like 30 minutes at some point. 9 minutes is feasible and what can be afforded this time around. Again, part of the interest is recruitment and retention and increased student achievement. And what we do with that is the ability to make sure we meet the other requirements in the contract as we move forward. If we had 8-hour day and we could move some instructional minutes, you have to go back again to the calendar committee and the issues that we had around that. That's where the whole thing started, was we got backed up every year based on hurricane makeup days and the requirements set forth by the state. And again, this gave us some wiggle room by increasing the instructional time. As we continue to do that, and we all agree, increased instructional time is good for kids. And as we do that, though, we have to be concerned about meeting the requirements that are currently in the contract. That's where the whole conversation was started. And boy, if we had an 8-hour day, we wouldn't even have to worry about that. We could increase instructional time, and we would never have to worry about meeting the requirements of that if we had that built in. That was part of the conversation that happened in the calendar committee. This is where all of this started from. Nobody just said, hey, let's add 9 additional minutes to the workday. It was all based on that conversation that took place in our provision in our contract is on participatory decision making.
Okay, and I don't disagree, I sat on the calendar committee also, and we did go back and forth on this, but we were also assured that everything could take place with that additional time. And we did ask multiple times.
And it is this year. It is in place. But if we want to continue to take a look at that and do that, this is again looking for the future, down the road in the future. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Shay.
No, that's okay. I understand where you're coming from, but you're right, it's for the future. So why are we pushing it so hard this year? We come back in February. Why does it have to be 9 minutes? Could we do 5 minutes?
Well, I understand what you're saying there, but if you think about what has happened over the year, I'm not so sure that we're not done with that again next year until we don't bargain over the summer. We could be into August again when school started. So I think we're kind of forced to take a look at what we're doing. We don't know for sure that we're going to have the agreement in place that addresses the minutes moving forward. I mean, we're talking about some of there's a commitment here, again, to address compression in years X more directly. And I hope we can do that. But there's no guarantee that we get that done before school starts, but that's the intention.
And I understand that, but we're also in some ways creating compression if you're only raising the bottom. If you're raising the bottom more than the top.
But again, we took that feedback and readjusted those percentages to make sure that we weren't just raising the bottom by a certain percentage, trying to spread that out. That's why I wanted to put that option to the test, because it was based on some of the feedback that we got. Again, I mean, when we put those numbers together a few weeks ago, we said, hey, this can work. I mean, that's why I said, we said what we said was we're closer in agreement because our options are starting to align. And so now we're getting farther apart because we keep bringing those options back based on the feedback we got, but we're not making any progress.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Could you possibly give us so all of us that sit here, teacher side, we worked off the percentages you gave us. We did not come up with the same thing you came up with. So, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just individually. We took your option and we put the numbers in
For our own salaries.
to our own salaries. And all of us on the teacher side on this team did not come up to $4,000. So maybe we did something wrong. Maybe if you showed us how you calculated it, everyone in the room could look at it and maybe we could have a better idea because none of us came up to $4,000.
Pull my salary out for all I care, public record.
All right, anything more? Do we want to meet Monday again?
Yes, but we need to take into account the Rosh Hashanah, correct?
Yes.
Starts at sundown on Monday, so we would need to be done by 7, because sunset is 7:23. But that may be too late too, because I'm not sure of the exact restrictions, so people may need to be where they need to be when sunset happens. I don't know, or in a synagogue or whatever, so the answer is yes. Like I said, I will talk as long as there is something to talk about. So Monday's fine with me.
Again, I have to bring this up as we're talking here. I'm not suggesting that this is the case, but if we get back Monday and we still are stuck kind of with the same thing, at what point do we determine that our interests don't meet each other and we move on? And I don't know, maybe I can ask the board attorney what that looks like specifically. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but how, I know you haven't.
One side can declare impasse. We can agree to do it.
No, it's.
Can I ask for a data request then to kind of give us the information that Shay was asking for? As far as, can you break it down? Can you give us this many people at this much percentage, this number of years, what this would cost in those breakdown? Can we get that for Monday?
What is that again that you're asking for?
Shay was talking to you guys earlier about, I think it's option 23, sorry, my computer's went down. Where we say, okay, this age, or not age group, this year group, 6 through 10, there's this many people, this much percentage, what the cost is, so we can see the entire breakdown. Do that as a data request.
I mean, I think we can provide that, but again, I think we're at a place where we're ready to talk about impasse, to be honest with you.
I know this is interest-based bargaining, you're never gonna get us to jointly declare impasse. I think impasse is a terrible procedure in which the board eventually can do whatever they wanna do. You will not get an impasse, a jointly declared impasse from time.
Does the declaration have to come while you're at bargaining, or no?
And further, there's nothing that prohibits us from continuing to talk after one side is declared impasse.
Data request, I mean, we can get that to you like ASAP.
I mean, we still haven't said whether we're meeting Monday, so.
No, we
like,
haven't.
That I think is the first thing, because listen, if you're going to declare impasse, the process is you declare impasse, we can continue to talk, right? We can still reach an agreement, but at some point we either mediate or hire somebody, we make our case before that person makes a recommendation, which is non-binding, and then the board can do whatever it wants, regardless of whatever the magistrate says. Maybe the magistrate says we got nothing and we should be happy with what we got. Maybe the magistrate says, hey, you're onto something, maybe they should do a little more. But in the final analysis, the board is the impartial body. And so, to be honest with you, the first question is, are we meeting on Monday? And then I'm fine with meeting on Monday. But again, I think we need to respect Rosh Hashanah starting at sunset on Monday and kind of figure out what the requirements are of people who practice that faith and whether, to allow them to attend if they want to. So, but people come and go. So I think the first question is, are we meeting on Monday?
Obviously, you're talking about adjusting the hours, so do you want to say we meet from 4 to 6?
I mean, I think
we have an abbreviated version then on Monday.
4 to 6:30, something, but again, I don't purport to know the rules, right? I know that it's a very important holiday in the Jewish faith, and we should respect it, and people have it off. I agree. Work.
All right, so Monday, 4 to 6 or 6:30?
I mean, do we want to say 6 to be very conservative, to allow people to come and attend the whole thing, and
I think so.
do whatever they need to do if they honor that holiday?
Or we can start, I know it's rough, but we can start 3:30, whatever.
Let's start at 4.
4 to 6.
Yeah.
4 to 6 Monday.
Okay.
All right. All right. Anna, did I see your hand up?
No.
Okay. Anybody else?
Good.
All right, back here Monday, 4 to 6. Thank you, everybody.